Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Shira Charpentier, founder of Beyond Rules Recovery. Hi everyone, I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I'm so pleased to have Shira. I'm going to say it Charpentier, the French version of it, and very pleased to have her here. Thank you for being here, Shira. And Shira is going to be sharing her story of her struggles through eating disorders, recovery, and where it's brought to her today. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Shira, and I grew up in Minnesota. I'm I have two sisters, one older and one younger. And yeah, I guess my story really started out when I was a child. I was really fortunate to have my little sister born when I was 7. And my family dynamics really changed at that point. And it was sort of a new family dynamic for me. Unfortunately, I was abused as a child, and my father really changed when my little sister was born. And to me, it was sort of a foreign, experience, because I had known him one way, and then all of a sudden he had become this other kind of person. And I think that's really where sort of the eating disorder kind of took off for me, because I always had been this very, needing to be perfect, needing to be quiet, needing to be respectful. And, when my world kind of changed, my little sister was born, that's what I knew and that's who I was. But then it was kind of different, and those expectations weren't there for her. And I guess I just needed to kind of continue that role that I was playing, to be a perfect child. And unfortunately, that came out for me through my eating disorder. That started pretty young. And, it's hard to say that nobody really picked it up until I was older. And so I went all through my, childhood years, middle school and high school years with nobody knowing that I was struggling with an eating disorder. And I actually really didn't realize it until I got to college myself and was eating with a new group of people, and I was just thinking to myself, wow, my relationship with food, the way that I eat, is completely different than all these people that I'm seeing. And that's really when I started kind of wondering, what is going on with my food situation. And that's when I went to get help for the first time, was when I was in college.
Wow. And can you tell us a little bit? So you were quite young when you started, and what would you define your eating disorder as?
Yeah, I would say really from that early age until kind of mid college was anorexia. I really started cutting out foods that I associated with, positive experiences, birthdays, pancakes on Sunday morning, all these things that I thought, I wasn't, you know, I couldn't have those things, and I didn't deserve them. And so it's like slowly by slowly, I cut all these things saying, I don't like them, or, I don't like the taste of them, but really, I didn't feel like I was able to have them like everybody else. So yeah, I would say definitely anorexia. By the time I got to high school, I wasn't going to the dining hall or to the dining room at all. I was sitting in my teacher's classrooms during lunch, never had eaten lunch, even though my parents had packed me lunch. And it was a really silent, eating disorder, journey for me for so long. And, it did sort of begin to change when I got to college and was kind of given that freedom for the first time, and nobody was watching me. And that's sort of when it started into some binge eating. And, before I knew it, I sort of had gained some weight, and I was like, I really think I've got like let myself go out of control. And, one day I just realized, hey, after I eat, I can throw up and get rid of all this food. And, that then sent me on another journey for another decade of bulimia. So, anorexia for a decade, bulimia for a decade. I had an eating disorder for a total of probably about 23 years. And really, the last 10 years for me, really, bulimia was probably the worst. And, as I'm sure from people that have spoken on here, and your experience, it can go hidden for so long and you're so ashamed. You don't want to tell anybody about really what your life is like on a daily basis. And, for me, that had gotten so out of control. Yet I remained this really wonderful, perfect student who got, straight A's, graduated from college, got a job, went back to college and got a nursing degree, and really never missed a beat until my world really started falling down and I couldn't, continue at that rate anymore.
That's interesting. I've known, I had a friend who also, she started with anorexia and then it moved on to bulimia. And you feel ashamed and you feel that people are going to judge you too, even if you say, I need help. And then you go, well, then they're going to see you in a different way. But now I love what you wrote to me, because that's one thing that I always say, because like with me, I struggled on and off for 30 years, mostly on. And you said something that I feel is so true, is how amazing it feels to recover.
Oh my gosh. I know, I celebrated 8 years just a couple months ago. And, I was talking to somebody yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and I was like, my memories of how bad it was fade every year a little bit more. And I'm just so grateful for that, because there was a time where I thought this was my life and there was no out. And now to think that I'm living this life in recovery and that those memories become less and less and my new memories become more and more, and I just feel so fortunate to say that I have recovered, and, I'm living a life that I really never dreamed was possible for me. And even the people around me started telling me like I was, going to have an eating disorder the rest of my life. And, I was chronic and I was too severe and all of these things. And ultimately it wasn't my story. It wasn't the end of my story. And I think that's, when I found out about your podcast, I really wanted to just share, no matter how long it's been for people or how long they've been hiding in secrecy, you can totally recover. And, I also want to share a little bit about what I've started since kind of the middle of my journey in recovery. I started an organization. We initially were called Living Proof MN, and we have now changed and rebranded, and we're called Beyond Rules Recovery. And, when I left treatment, I had to leave treatment because I realized it wasn't a good place for me. It maybe was at some point, to really get me out of the medically unstable portions of my life that I was in, but ultimately it wasn't a place where I could recover. And I realized that, and I needed to leave, and I really forged my own way. And when I was looking for other ways to get support for myself, I couldn't find anything. I really was stuck. So I ended up going to AA, which really got me to my first 100 days of eating disorder behavior free. It wasn't consecutive when I first started, but it was, 2 days, and then I backslipped, and then it was 5 days and backslipped. And, I finally got to 100 consecutive days, and it was amazing. I didn't have any eating, alcohol or drug addiction, but I purely went out for my eating disorder. And I told them that right off the bat, and they welcomed me. This group did. And I went every day at 12 o'clock. And that was the only thing I could really find that was something that was different than treatment. So fast forward about 4 years, when I started sharing my story at treatment centers and how I've, recovered and my life has gone on, people will come up to me afterwards and say, can I just get your phone number? Can I just talk with you? I would just love to know like how you did it. And so of course I gave them my phone number and I started talking to people. That led me to mentoring people. That led me to opening up my own nonprofit, which I have today. And I feel so lucky to be able to offer something to people that I wish I could have found in that moment when I was really searching, because I had it in me that I really wanted to recover, but I didn't know how. I didn't even know one person in recovery at that moment. And so, that's what I want to give people today. We're 100% peer-led. And everybody that's helping somebody else is just a little bit further in their own recovery process. And so we like to think of our program as an, evolution. So the people that are getting help today are going to be the people helping others tomorrow. And we have an array of support from mentoring that I'm still doing today to support groups, to education, to training, to pep rallies at schools, and really bringing that body confident, that authentic, becoming your own advocate, becoming empowered to schools and kids and college students worldwide. And it's just been a phenomenal experience, teaching myself how to run a nonprofit. Had no experience till today. I mean, being on this podcast saying I've recovered and I want other people to recover too.
That's lovely. I just got goosebumps. I love that. I've recovered. It's a beautiful thing to say, isn't it? I mean, it's overwhelmingly, it almost brings tears to my eyes when I hear these stories, because it's just amazing. And we were talking about that. A few of my friends have been talking about it, how with COVID and such, how it's increased eating disorders. And they say amongst young women, but there's young men are also it's increasing. And I don't know that it's 100% increase. I mean, it's increasing in all directions, but I even think back when I had bulimia, that there were more males that had it than we knew, because they wouldn't come out, but they're now coming out and seeking help for it, which is nice to see.
Definitely.
They were a lot. I think they just kept silent. So really the statistics, I don't think really reflected what we were listening to. So I think it's wonderful you're going into the schools, because the young ladies really need to know, and the young men, that there's support there for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do have men on our groups, and I've worked with them individually. We had a live-in program for about 2.5 years going, where my husband and I opened up our home to people with eating disorders. And some people were with us for a couple weeks, and some people were with us for 6 months. So we really got to see people transform. And as exhausting and challenging as it was, I do not regret, one day of doing those live-ins. We have stopped them for the moment. We're working on really building our nonprofit and getting some more assistance so that we can maybe reopen in some fashion to have a live-in program, maybe a shorter amount of time, but having more support, because it was really my husband and I, and it was a lot of work. But going back to the male thing, we do have males. I've had males as mentees. I've had males on our support groups, and I even had male in our live-in program, and they have recovered. They're living a life of recovery they didn't ever think that they could, and they're so happy that they broke the silence, right? And some of them had to come out to their wives and their children that they hadn't said, anything for 20, 30 years. And they got the courage to seek help, to tell their family what had been going on, and then to find the appropriate support so that they could recover. And it's just, amazing to see these men at all ages really come forward, share their experience, and then want to help other men come forward, because I think that's what this whole thing is about, is peers helping peers. I think that's the best way. People have lived through it, and those are the people that know what it's like, how they got through it, giving some of their own, guidance from their own experience, and really helping other people create that life that maybe they never thought was possible for themselves.
I agree with that. And defining the proper treatment is also very, very important. I, like you, I had a great counselor when I first started seeking help in my journey. And then I was moved away, and I couldn't find somebody, and I was progressing really well, but then I just dropped back into it. And, from psychiatrists to psychologists to meeting groups, I don't want to put down some of the Facebook groups that I've watched, but I do worry about them sometimes, because some of the questions on there can be actually triggering for somebody, particularly if you're new into the recovery. And now I'm not saying that just about bulimia. I have this one lady who came on to one of our podcasts who lost an eye, and she was going onto Facebook groups with people who had lost an eye as well. And she says, I had to get off of there because she has such a positive attitude, and it was weighing her down. So you just have to really be careful that, yes, there are going to be times that's going to be serious, but you also need that positive encouragement. That's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's like something that I really want to stress when people are, maybe looking for a different support for themselves, or they have a family member that's, has been struggling, or even a coworker, a neighbor, a spouse, a sister, whatever it is, um, direct them to our website. Beyond Rules Recovery is changing the way recovery is looked at. We believe people can recover. We empower people to recover, and we want people to take ownership of the recovery process. And we're very, very recovery focused, probably the most that I've seen in any group. And people have told us that, I just came from trying 5 other groups, and man, I was more depressed leaving the group than I was, before I even went. And, we really focus on helping people figure out what tools are going to be helpful for their progress and working towards recovery, and really giving people the empowerment, the skills, the tools to change their life actively, not sitting in the despair and the sorrow and the, shame, but really rising above it and saying, okay, this is what I've got. How can I move forward from this? And people have just remarkably, changed their life, their direction of their life. And it's just been phenomenal to see, like you said, the right kind of support when you're really, motivated and, desiring to change, if you can find something to match that, it's like a perfect setup for yourself. And that's really what I hope people leave Beyond Rules Recovery with, is that empowerment and that instillment that they have it within themselves to recover. They can actually do this. And we're just really excited, it's been a couple of years, and we're going on our 3rd year of being founded, and helped a lot of people, and just looking forward to 2022, basically. So yeah, it's just a great feeling.
I love it. And as you said, I've never had experience with a nonprofit before. It just shows, though, that when you're really adamant about something and passionate about something, that you'll learn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the best things about recovery is you finally get the confidence to live the life that you want, right? And speaking up for yourself, being your best self. In the eating disorder, you're pleasing other people, you're doing things for the society, you're doing things to, have a good name for yourself. But when you're in recovery, you really are just thinking about, wow, what makes me happy? What makes me tick? What are my passions? And you get to go after them. And then maybe it doesn't work, right? So you change course, but it doesn't bring you down. It's like I was telling somebody, when I was in my eating disorder, I never had this like imagination, this forward thinking, right? And now it's like every day I have a new thought. I'm like, oh, I should try this. Oh, I wonder what this would be like. And it's just like so wonderful because I didn't have it for 20 years. It really was like dead on the inside and outside. And I've completely come back alive. And I love watching that happen with the people that we work with too.
It's beautiful. And I'm really glad that you're on here too, because I know that, believe it or not, this time of the year is one of the most stressful ones for people who are struggling with eating disorders. I remember I used to just think, oh my gosh, here we go again. You're surrounded by food and family, and very, very stressful.
Very.
So definitely, it's good. We're going to definitely have this on the website and everything to make sure that people can reach out to you. And that's one thing that I love. I'm not even nervous or worried anymore. Like for the last I'm 11 years, and it's like, this is so great. I can actually sit down at a meal. I don't have to write. I've said this before on the previous podcast. I don't have to look at my watch and wait, 20 minutes to find somewhere that nobody's going to know that I'm disappearing.
Yeah.
Wait till it's really busy so that they don't notice you're gone. And it was awful. It was awful to live that way, and to not, it's like, it's a gift, really. And yeah, so I'm just so excited. I don't have to go through that anymore. And I really want other people to feel that same.
Yeah. I'm really, really glad that came across your podcast, and thank you for doing this and inspiring other people that they can do it too. I think, just the more people that can talk about their experience and getting it out in the open, breaks down that stigma that, it's okay if you're struggling and you can get better. Don't hide anymore. Come out and get the help and recover.
And know that you're not alone.
Absolutely.
And the thing is too, it's not expected, tomorrow you're going to be over it. It's going to take time for some people. Some people will be faster, some people will be slower, but just knowing that you have that support group there is really important, and the right one for you. And I love this podcast because it gives the listeners an array of different opportunities. So if they don't feel that going to Beyond Rules Recovery is right for them. There's other options,
Absolutely.
but I love this concept, and I love that you had people inside. It was funny because my dream, since I think I was in my late 20s and I was still struggling with bulimia, but I said, when I recover, eventually I'm going to have, those little tiny homes. I'm going to have like 5 or 6 of them and have a getaway for people who are struggling with bulimia, just to get away.
It can still happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It still happen.
I think sometimes too, but it's hard to, this is something I wonder if you work with, because even getting away, I think, does help sometimes in an environment where there's support, but then they have to integrate back when they get back. And I think that's can be very difficult. I know one young lady that that I'm helping, she calls me when she needs me to. She did go into support because she had to with her health and everything. And she came back out and she says, I want to go back, because it was hard for her to integrate. Started feeling the same stresses about work, same things that were triggers. And
absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that we did at our Living program, and we help people, even my mentees and on our groups, is, in the beginning, there's a lot of support, right? There's a lot of feedback. There's a lot of, troubleshooting together. But then you have to let that person figure it out also, because when they go back into their normal everyday life, whether they come out of treatment, whether they come out of my house, whether they come out of like our support groups, they're not going to have that constant support. And life, I say to people, just because you're in recovery doesn't mean life is perfect. Like every day is stressful. Every day there's like a snafu that comes in, or like bad news that comes about. And, it's about, recovery is about dealing with those stressors in a more positive way. You don't have to rely on the eating disorder to get through them. And so as people progress through our program, there's less of that, quick, I need help right now, but like, how do you get through it? And then sort of check in and be like, wow, I made this progress. Like, look, a month ago, I wasn't able to do this, and now look what I can do. And so we did sort of have this tapering of, letting people take more of an active role in their recovery, which helped them set themselves up for going back to their own environment. And we had a lot of people transition and did really, really, really well, where they had been in and out of treatment and could not sustain. So, there are different models out there. Like I said, I really hope that one day we can offer something like that again. But in the meantime, the mentoring and the support groups and the things that we have can actually help. Don't just dismiss it because it's not what you think is going to be the ideal situation. Some of those ideal situations that you hear of may not be good for you. So just be open, right? Open to something, trying something new. Hearing a different set of vocabulary from somebody else can really change someone's course of their life. At least it did for me.
Very true. And one thing I'd like to talk to you about before I let you go, I find there's a lot of people who talk about trigger foods. I tend to think there's triggers that trigger you to go to the trigger foods. And
Absolutely.
this is one thing that's very difficult, because I think sometimes even young people, younger, and not even that, even my 30s and stuff, it was still going on. But things like feeling overwhelmed at work, or not even liking what you're doing at work, but then feeling stuck because you think, well, I don't want to leave there and find something that's more to my style because of that security.
Absolutely.
And it's hard too, as somebody to say, hey, you know what? I know one of the triggers is your job because you just absolutely hate it, and that's going to trigger it. But I can't say, but quit. Like, because in my position, I can't say that. But I know from what they're talking about, that's one of the issues.
Yep.
That's a really difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have people that come on, and maybe they're taking AP classes in high school, or they're taking, more credits in college than sort of the normal full-time credits, or they don't like their job, right? So we do have people that come on and they kind of share their experience or their situation currently. And we're like, oh my gosh, I look at what you're talking about. If you decrease this, or you kind of went a little bit of a different route, how that would eliminate that stressor, that sort of that disgust in your life, or that sort of discontentment. And, I think people that are in it don't see the things that are contributing. But when you're on the outside and you're kind of seeing like retrospectively what it was for yourself, you can really help somebody maybe have a better perspective. And not to say that everybody needs to change their entire situation, but being more mindful of like, hey, wow, really, every time I come home from work, this XYZ happens. Maybe I need to change my routine. Maybe I need to change my environment, the people I hang out with, to set myself up for success, right? Absolutely.
That's one thing I do try to, when I'm guiding somewhere, helping them, coaching them, is to try and, I know that you're talking, and I see that a lot, the trigger foods, try to stop there and try and find out, like you said, do you use different words than that, but you're saying trigger foods, I'm trying to say triggers that try to go to those.
Definitely. It's not about the food. We know that.
Yeah.
It's not about the food, right? It's everything else that's underneath the food. So, I like what you're saying is really focusing on the external, the environment, situations, because that is leading to the eating disorder symptoms and behaviors, not the other way around.
Yeah. Oh, I used to be a go, didn't stop. And that was my stop. But then I didn't realize, I'm doing this right now.
Yes.
You've taken on too much. And
yes.
And it's hard to eliminate certain things because you go, no, I love this, and this is really good, and that's really good. But for your health, you need to find out, okay, in priorities, what can you remove? It's not everyone that's like that, but there's certain people that are. So really appreciate you being here this day.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And please, so that I know it's going to be on the website and in the notes, but please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Sure. So we are Beyond Rules Recovery, and the website is pretty easy. It's www.beyondrulesrecovery.org. You can find everything right on that website.
Excellent. Again, Shira, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Lorianne.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.